I'm Ellis Martin. Join me now for a conversation with Vishal Gupta, the President and CEO of California Gold Mining Incorporated, trading on the OTCQX as CFGMF and on the CSE as CGM. Mr. Gupta is a professional geologist, having had experience working with numerous junior exploration and development stage mining companies. Most recently, he worked as an equity research analyst covering junior mining companies for Toronto-based financial institutions including Dundee Capital Markets, Fraser, Mackenzie, and Global Financial, where he conducted independent technical due diligence on several exploration and resource development programs throughout North, Central, and South America. California Gold Mining is focused on continued development of a high-quality gold resource on its 100% owned Fremont Property in Mariposa County, California. The property consists of an entirely private and patented land package totaling 3,351 acres of historically producing gold mines, with a state highway, PG&E electric substation, and abundant water present on the property itself. The company is also pursuing establishing a greenhouse-based propagation of high CBD industrial hemp seed on the Fremont property, the cash flow from which could be used to continue development of its gold business with less dilution for shareholders. Vishal, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me on it, Ellis.
Now, I live in California, and I've been up to Northern California many times, and I always thought for as long as I've lived here, this is gold country. This is where it all started. Why are we not producing more gold?
Well, since the Second World War, most of the gold mines that were part of the gold rush of the 1800s and early 1900s, since the Second World War, all of those mines got shut down. The miners were sent to the war. The mining equipment was taken out of gold mines. At the time, gold mining was considered to be non-essential, and all that equipment was reappropriated to help with the war effort and was sent to iron ore mines and tungsten mines and nickel mines so that the U.S. Army could produce more artillery shells and ammunition and tanks and stuff like that. So for the last 75, 80 years, the gold mines in California have been shut down, much like most of the gold mines in the United States as well. And just in the last 5 to 10 years or so, there has been renewed interest in California. And part of that renewed interest is California Gold. We consider ourselves to be one of the first movers back into the state of California. We've got a private piece of land in central eastern California in a county called Mariposa County, where we own 3,300 acres of completely private and patented piece of land. And this property is very special because it lies along that historic Mother Lode gold belt of California where the gold rush took place. And out of that 200-kilometer long belt, we have a 4-kilometer strike of that mineralized shear zone running on our property. And out of that 4-kilometer strike, we have drilled out 1 kilometer only, and just shallow ounces, we've got a resource estimate, 43101 compliant resource estimate of nearly 900,000 ounces only on that 1 kilometer. So we've got the potential for truly a world-class deposit, gold deposit here on our property. Now, what we're also looking to do is add a second business to our existing business of gold exploration. We're looking to add a second business that has to do with hemp cultivation. So we're looking at setting up a greenhouse on our property this year, and that greenhouse will be used specifically for propagation of very high CBD content industrial hemp seed.
You know, when I think about something like that, it's sort of like we're talking about gold and then we say, but wait, there's more, just like one of those infomercials on TV. You're not relying on gold itself to drive this company. You've got a project in an industry that is just really getting started. When you hear anything about CBD anywhere in the world, that supply has to come from somewhere, and you are propagating the seeds, aren't you?
That's correct, yes. Our roots are in the mining industry, and we will never give that up. But the mining industry does go through some very extreme vagaries. We have been going through a pretty severe downturn in the gold sector specifically over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And for a junior company that is in the exploration phase of its life cycle to be in a position to do dilutive financings one after the other just to keep your gold exploration business up and running becomes very, very taxing. And so we were always looking at an alternative business to monetize this private piece of land that we own in Central California, generate some positive cash flow that would eventually help us achieve our objectives on the gold exploration side. That was the key.
What you're saying, Vishal, is you're not going to continually have to go to the market to fund the Fremont Gold Project at all.
That's the expectation. We right now are setting up this industrial hemp seed propagation project on our property. That project will become a business when we become revenue positive. The expectation is by the end of this year, we should have our first realization of our first revenues from that hemp seed business. Obviously, at that time, our hemp project will actually become a viable business. And around that time, we will have two paths in front of us. Either we change our company from being a gold exploration company to being an industrial hemp company, or we split the two businesses up into two separate companies. And the expectation is that we should be doing the latter. And if we do the latter, then we will try and do a plan of arrangement where existing shareholders of California Gold will own a share of each of the two separate companies after the split, and we will structure some sort of an arrangement, either it's a leasing arrangement or some sort of a royalty arrangement, where a portion of the cash flow, a small portion of the cash flow generated from the hemp business can be diverted to the gold company and will help the gold company achieve its gold exploration objectives without going through that debt spiral of dilutive financing after dilutive financing.
So you say a small percentage of the revenue from the hemp seed project will potentially be diverted to the gold project. But in actuality, the numbers that I've seen are quite astonishing when it comes to projections with regard to this business of yours. Let's talk about that with the understanding that we may be making some forward-looking statements.
Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of compliance issues and a lot of regulatory issues that prevent me from outright coming out and telling the audience on your show what our revenue and cash flow projections are. But I can give you some bare minimum parameters that can be used to calculate these revenue numbers, these projected cash flow numbers that we hope to achieve from a hemp business as well. And as you said, a full disclaimer here, this is very forward-looking. We have not achieved this yet, so this cannot be completely relied on. I would like to say that our plan for that hemp project is to set up one greenhouse. That greenhouse is expected to be operational by the end of Q3, and we are going to be going through a seed propagation cycle, which is 3 months long, and we're going to keep on repeating that cycle over and over again to have up to 4 harvests in 1 year. Each harvest is supposed to be between 500 and 750 pounds of industrial hemp seed. So collectively in 1 year, on an annualized basis, we're looking at between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of this very specialized industrial hemp seed. The CBD content in the seed is very high, and because of that high CBD content, the seed is selling in the U.S. wholesale market for between $40,000 and $50,000 per pound today. But our long-term projections show that we should be very comfortable stating that the long-term wholesale prices on that seed should be somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 per pound. So you're looking at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of seed on an annual basis at a price of between $15,000 and $30,000 per pound on a wholesale basis. That's some significant cash flow just from one greenhouse.
And we invite our listeners to do their own math, I guess. In the mining business, we talk about offtake when it comes to whatever resource we're bringing out of the ground. So in this respect, you have certainly been discussing where these seeds are going to go.
We have, yes. And very importantly, I'll be very honest with you, Ellis, we don't have in-house expertise when it comes to specifically industrial hemp cultivation. So what we've done is we've actually gone and sourced a consulting group that has a specialization and an expertise specifically in industrial hemp cultivation. And we have signed a contractual agreement with them for them to do all the industrial hemp cultivation and seed propagation on our property on our behalf on a contract basis. And that same firm, this firm has been around for over a decade now, and this consulting firm has an impeccable reputation in the industrial hemp space. This same firm is the one that has relationships with multiple dozens of different farming co-ops throughout the United States. We are leveraging their brand name in the industrial hemp space to sell our seed. So the expectation is that the consulting group, it's called Delta Valley Hemp, by the way, they're based out of Chicago, Illinois. So Delta Valley Hemp will be purchasing all of our seed from us. They've already given us an offtake agreement for our entire seed production for 2019 and 2020. And all of this seed will be passed on to farming co-ops throughout the United States, and Delta Valley Hemp will be making a small brokerage commission on basically helping us facilitate the sale of seed to the farming co-op.
So if all of your hemp seed is spoken for in Northern California, in the Fremont area, then are you going to be looking elsewhere to grow?
Absolutely. Our game plan here is, and just to give you a color, just to give you an idea of what our growth plans are for this industrial hemp space, Delta Valley Hemp has given us an exclusivity agreement for 5 different states in the United States. So we have an exclusivity agreement signed with Delta Valley Hemp for the states of California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Arizona. We're also looking at other states that we don't have an exclusivity agreement signed with Delta Valley Hemp on, simply because they have other partners working in those other states with them as well. But we're also looking at Illinois, we're looking at Kentucky, we're looking at Missouri, we're looking at Wisconsin, we're looking at New York State. So we're looking at a few different states in the United States to see where we can go and acquire more land, where we can go and set up our hemp business on a much, much larger scale. Specifically, if our first greenhouse is successful, then we want to be in a position to expand very, very rapidly rapidly, and the groundwork for that has already begun.
Northern California probably has one of the best environments to have multiple crops throughout the season. With a greenhouse in play in these areas, then you have an unlimited growing potential.
That's correct. In a greenhouse, it's a completely controlled environment. You're talking about temperature, humidity, sunlight, moisture, everything is completely controlled. So we are not exposed to the vagaries of climate and weather patterns. In a greenhouse, in a controlled environment, we can have as many as 4 crops on an annualized basis.
Do you see any urban farming in the future as a result of this technology?
There may very well be urban farming in the future. I think what we're looking at is for the next 2 to 3 years is going to be a specialty crop. You will need an educational sort of a time frame where experts like Delta Valley Hemp will help educate the farming communities throughout the United States to come up the learning curve on this specialty plant and its benefits, and there's some specialty planting and caring and harvesting techniques that farmers throughout the United States will have to learn over the next 2 to 3 years or so. And yes, definitely over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, we'll see that industrial hemp, especially with high CBD content, will start to become much more mainstream than it is today.
Let's just say, for the record, that many juniors right now in the gold space are not doing that well in this particular market. There's plenty of opportunities out there, and there are certainly a few that are doing well. You having this hemp aspect of your business has certainly helped you with regard to growing your shareholder base and interest in the company, especially recently. Is that not correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. We just came out with our first press release on our intention to enter the industrial hemp space literally 3 months ago. And since then, our stock price has more than doubled. And of course, we had very recent acceleration of our warrants as well, which helped top up the treasury. We've had a lot more interest in the capital market, especially here in Canada, also in the United States as well. We've had a lot of interest from retail investors who are very interested in learning more about what we're trying to do on the industrial hemp space. It just seems like the audience for industrial hemp and industrial hemp-derived CBD is much bigger, especially in the United States, than what it is for gold mining.
And then as a result, we're introducing them to gold, aren't we, sort of as a byproduct?
Well, absolutely. And it goes the other way around in Canada, where Canadian audiences are very attuned with the precious metal sector, and industrial hemp is a bit of an education for them. And in the United States, it's turning out to be the other way around.
Let's talk about the politics in California. When you speak to Canadians, especially investors and geologists, they don't want to touch the area. How have you managed to get past that in Northern California?
Well, California is a bit of a pain to do any business in, regardless of whether you're in the mining business or you're in any sort of a hard metals, hard assets business. California is a really tough jurisdiction to do any business in. But with California Gold's property, the Fremont property, we've got a few things going for us. And that sets us a little bit apart. It basically gives us a bit of a leverage when it comes to being in California. First of all, it's a completely private piece of land. Completely private, and it's patented. We own 100% of the surface rights. We own 100% of the mineral rights. And as private landowners, regardless of where in the United States you are, even if you are in a state like California, which is a tough jurisdiction to do business in, as a private landowner, you have substantial rights. You have significant rights. We're quite fortunate that we actually own the entirety of the land. We've got 3,300 acres of completely private land. We own all of it. Not only that, but also we are in a county called Mariposa County, which is an autonomous county. And what I mean by that is that when it comes to environmental permitting of any project, in this case, the county is the lead agency, not the state of California. Many other counties in California do not have the wherewithal to be the lead agency on environmental permitting, and in that case, the state steps in as the lead agency. In those circumstances, the probability of getting your project environmentally permitted is slim to none. In our case, we are very fortunate that we have Mariposa County, which is an autonomous county, and in an autonomous county where the county is the lead agency, if you have local community support, then the probability of you getting your project permitted, that probability is very high. Since in our case, we do have a lot of local community support, and the reason for that is that the county of Mariposa has an unemployment issue. We've got as much as 30% of the county's population draws on social welfare, and as much as another 30% of the county's population is hired by the local county government just to make sure that people have jobs and have a way to sustain their livelihoods. In this sort of a situation, the county of Mariposa sees that a project like California Gold's can bring hundreds of jobs, can bring millions of dollars in tax revenue, and that is very, very lucrative. So we have a lot of local support from the community within Mariposa County, and because of that, we believe our chances of getting permitted, both on the mining side and on the hemp side, are very, very high.
That's certainly excellent. Now, tell us about some of the people involved in your company, and specifically, I mean the shareholders, whether they be institutional or otherwise. Who's involved?
Well, we've got a bit of a unique shareholder structure to our company. We've got about 59 million shares outstanding. About 85% of the company is owned by 8 to 9 high net worth families. We've got 4 billionaires that own significant chunks of the company. The board and management team of the company own about 65% of the stock as well. So it's very, very tightly held. It's almost like a private company that is publicly traded. For the first time, we're in a position where we can actually start to expand our shareholder base in a dramatic fashion so that we can inject more liquidity into the company. I'll give you some examples of the families that are actually involved. Our largest shareholder is the Tomlinson family out of Ottawa, Canada. Now, the Tomlinson family, it's a multi-billion-dollar family. Their net worth is over $1 billion. They are involved in a vertically integrated heavy construction business throughout Eastern Canada, and they own about 30% of our company, 31% of our company. We also have another very high net worth family called the Reisenberg family that is based in London, Canada as well, London, Ontario, Canada, and they own about 15% of our company. We've got the Cronin family, also based out of London, Ontario, Canada, that is involved in the mortgage and real estate lending business. I think collectively their group owns about 17-18% of the company. You can see just between 3 or 4 names, you can see that vast majority of the shares are held. So these shareholders have been very supportive, have been very loyal. They have been through thick and thin with us over the last 6-7 years, despite the, as I mentioned to you before, the vagaries of the gold market that we have been experiencing over the last 7-8 years.
So essentially, and there's no guarantees on this, you've sort of de-risked the project at the outcome.
That's correct. Part of the reason why I joined the company 6 years ago, I am a geologist. At the time, I was working for several different investment banks in Toronto, Canada. This project came across my desk in 2013, and of course, I started doing my due diligence on this project right away. Part of the reason why I joined the company as part of the executive team is, first of all, the project was phenomenal from a gold exploration and resource perspective, but very importantly, this company also had a shareholder base that could sustain and that could withstand the ups and downs in the gold sector that we are experiencing today. And so this company had access to capital back then, 2013. This is part of the reason why this company has survived, while a lot of its peers have not. This was a very important factor in my decision-making before I joined the company in 2013.
In full disclosure, I'm a shareholder of California Gold Mining, cheerfully so, I might add, and also your company is a paid sponsor of the program. Vishal, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to more discussion in the future. Thanks for joining us on the program.
Ellis, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with Vishal Gupta, the president and CEO of California Gold Mining Incorporated, trading on the OTCQX as CFGMF and on the CSE as CGM. Download the entire Ellis Martin report on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. Visit us today at ellismartinreport.com.
Subscribe to the Ellis Martin newsletter. It's free. Go to ellismartinreport.com and fill out the quick and easy pop-up form.